Hi, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Crushing Land. Happy to be here with you again today. And you may be looking at this title and thinking, like, what in the world is this talking about? How to get basically a $40,000 vehicle for free or without any of your own money outlaid. And it actually came up because this is something that I have used before in some of the trainings that I've done, some of our group trainings, things like that, some of the live teaching and things like that that I've done. And I was actually talking to somebody today. It was actually somebody that I've known for a long time. We actually used to flip houses together and did some investments like that. And then I got into land, back a number of years ago, and then kind of got him involved in land about 7 or 8 years ago. And he came up and he was chatting with me about this, and he was talking about how he really likes how when you play with the numbers, it basically turns into like getting a car payment, or you're getting some other type of payment like that for nothing. And so what we're going to do is we're going to explain how that works through vacant land investing. And I'm going to be clear up front here. It's not really free, because you are spending the money on the vehicle, but we're going to show you how basically it's going to come out of no outlay of your own in order to do this. So basically, how you can use owner financing with properties to basically pay for other things, and how if you do it right, and how if you structure the deals correctly, and how if you're buying the properties right, that you can easily accomplish and purchase other things and cover other expenses that you have without any risk on your end, and also without any outlay of capital on your end. We're not tied up with a bunch of capital being tied up, basically, because obviously you can do cash flow on houses and things like that, but you're going to have capital tied up, right? Or you're going to have money going out the door every month with those, right? Because you're going to have mortgages, things like that. So what we're talking about here is just positive cash flow only, no money tied up, no capital tied up, and how you can use that to then go out and buy other things, such as, example, a car. And we're using the car as an example because it's an expense that most people have. And it's one that obviously maybe weighs on you a little bit sometimes, depending on the circumstances, things like that, because it's one of your, probably other than housing, is your most expensive item. And so what we're showing you here is how you can apply this to cover, say, a car payment with, again, no outlay of your own funds. So what does that mean? So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about owner financing a low-end deal, a low-end land deal. Now, will this work on higher end deals? Absolutely. It's going to actually increase the monthly and things like that. But the reason we're using the lower end deals, a couple different reasons. One, nobody's really scared about these. Obviously, there's a whole lot of room to go with them. You're not really tying up anything to begin with when you're dealing with these ones. So that's an option there. They tend to be things that you can buy cheaper and sell at a good price because of that. So that's an advantage there. So there's a lot of different reasons why lower end works. And one of the other things is here, obviously, a lot of people here are watching this and are brand new to land investing, or just thinking about land investing, or whatever it may be. And so we want this to resonate with you, because if we tell you to go out and buy, a $100,000 piece of property and then go and sell that piece of property with owner financing, you may sit there and say, well, there's no way I could do that. I can't tie that up. I'm not in a situation, whatever it may be. Whereas, when I'm sitting here and I'm talking to you about a $10,000 piece of property, well, now it means you can look at that a little bit differently. And so that's what I want to help you with. And so what we're talking about here today is selling a piece of property for $10,000. Now, we're going to assume that you're buying that piece of property for, let's say, $2,000. And you may say, well, where can you buy $10,000 pieces of property for $2,000? We do it all the time. Low-end deals, it's very easy to still get, on that, those lower numbers, right? You can still get deals on properties that are just not that expensive. Now, obviously, if you want to go buy a $50,000 piece of property, buying it for 10 grand, because it still happens sometimes, but it's rare. $100,000 piece of property for 20 grand, does it happen? Sometimes, but very rare. So that's not what you're going to be seeing with higher end values. But when with lower end values, particularly 10,000 and under, you're able to now get these still at a good discount. So what we're going to assume here is that you can buy a piece of property for 2 grand, and then you can sell it, not for cash, but with owner financing, which is going to appeal to more buyers, for $10,000. Now, let's assume that you get your $2,000 back from your end buyer as as their down payment. So you're now financing $8,000. You're going to finance $8,000 at 12%. Okay, we're just throwing out a 12% interest rate. I'm not saying that you have to use 12%. That's a number that we use quite often. We actually go higher than that with some of these lower end deals quite often. Some people go a little bit less, but we're just going to throw out 12% as a number for this example to try to help you follow along here. So you're financing $8,000 at 12%, and you're going to do it for 5 years. Okay, 12%. $8,000, 12%, 5 years. What does that turn into? Well, if you break that out over 60 months, which is 5 years, it's $177.96 a month. $177.96. That's what's coming to you. Now, I already told you, you bought the property for $2, you're selling it for $10 with financing, you're getting $2 back, and now you are owner financing the $8,000 that's left. So in that case there, you are all positive cash flow on that $177.96, right? There's no other expenses. Yes, there's taxes and things like that, but those are going to be built in, and we're not going to get into that. That's something that we talk about in our training and in our courses and things like that. But just for the sake of this, we're going to say all we're looking at is just the payment. So they're paying you $177.96, and that's all positive because the property's paid off. You have no mortgage, you have nothing tied up, everything there is positive. So you might be saying, well, that sounds nice, but $177.96 doesn't really do much, right? It's not going to buy a vehicle like you're talking about. And I will say that's 100% accurate. But why do you have to do this only once? What's the reason that you say, well, I'm only going to do this with one property? Let's say that you do it with 4 properties, and they're all basically the same thing. You're buying them for $2. You're getting $2 back as a down payment. You are now going to sell them for $10. You're going to finance $8,000 on each of these properties at that 12% for 60 months or 5 years. So now you're getting that $177.96 on every single one of those. So now you're multiplying that times 4 because there's 4 of those deals, which comes out to $711.82. So if you're looking at that, you're going to get $711.82 each and every month, all positive in this case. So if you were to break that down over 60 months, you multiply that times 60, because that's how long it's going to be that you're going to get that for 5 years, it's over $42,000. So for an outlay of $8,000, 4 properties at $2,000 each, you already got back your $2,000 each on those properties. And now your owner financing $8,000 times 4, right? Times those 4 properties to come up with a $700 plus per month positive cash flow on those 4 low-end properties. What does that turn into? Again, over the time, over the 60 months, well, you're talking about over $42,000. So here's an example of how you can go out and you can buy a vehicle, because a lot of times brand new vehicles, 0% interest or very, very low interest, 0.1, very low interest rates if you're buying them brand new, the way the dealerships work. So obviously, if you're looking at buying a vehicle, you can go out and you can buy a vehicle here. You're talking about for, $42,000 vehicle, say $40,000 vehicle, and your 4 purchases that you've already now gotten all of your money back on is covering that. And this is something that I've done numerous times. I've used it on buying vehicles, other expenses, and things like that by having these regular things coming in. This is something that you can then, and you can use that in your mind. You can sit there and say, okay, well, I'm paying this, which is translating into this. Yes, you're still paying the money. Don't get me wrong, right? The money's still there. You're still putting out the $40,000. But what you have into it to get that back is only $8,000. And like I said, you've already gotten back that $8,000. So in reality, you have nothing into it in order to get back that $42,000. That's the power of financing in these deals here, these land type of deals. Because again, there's no maintenance costs. There's nothing on them. You're not paying anything other than taxes on those properties, which again are being billed to the person that's financing anyway. We just didn't talk about that. So all of that $700 each and every month is positive to you, and you can use it for things such as buying a vehicle or something like that we talked about. And again, that's with nothing tied up. Now, what happens if you decide to tie up a little bit? What happens if you said, I'm going to finance the entire $10,000? So in that case, if you were to multiply that times 4, if you were to, well, first off, let's say that you were going to have $10,000 and you were going to do it again at 12% for 60 months. Well, now you're at $222.44. Okay, that's at $10,000 being financed. So now you multiply that times 4, you're at almost $890, just shy of $890. Again, coming in each and every month. Now, in this case, it's not all positive, right? Because you have $8,000 tied up. You still have your $8,000 tied up. But for that $8,000 being tied up, for the next 5 years, you have $900 a month coming in. So obviously, after just a half a year or so, you've gotten back all of your money. And then for the next 4.5 years, it's all positive, and you're getting $900 a month. And in this case, that turns into about $55,000. So you're going to get back about $55,000 for having $8,000 tied up. So imagine that, going out and buying a $55,000 vehicle or something similar for that price there, $8,000. So again, you're not actually buying it for $8,000, but that's what your cost is. That's what you have tied up in capital. That's what you're having to outlay in order to get that, to have your money work and then turn that into that type of, that $55,000. And this is something that you can do over and over and over and over again. You can have a bunch of these type of deals going on where you're collecting these each every month, and then you could just start watching your bills disappear, right? At first, you can start watching your bills. Okay, this one's covering my insurance payment. This one's covering my electric bill. This one's covering this. Then eventually, as they start to pile up, it can turn into, well, I'm paying my car payment with this. Oh, I'm paying another car payment with this. Oh, I'm paying my house with this. Oh, I can pay for an even better house with this. And all at buying properties at a discount, having nothing tied up or very little tied up, based on which example that we use, that I use, that you want to put into play, having very little tied up, and then from there, taking that and turning it into covering all of these other things. So you could really see how, for a very minimal amount of capital being tied up, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 being tied up, and this is as you get going, not up front. As you get going, you could be generating multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars a year in passive income from that. And so that's a strategy that you can use and that we're talking about here, because again, it came up in the conversation today where, this person I was talking to that's been doing this for a while, he's like, I love these financing deals, and I'm going to go back and I'm going to start being a little bit more creative with them and doing them even more, because he's like, I love that analogy of, there's your car payment. There it is, there it's gone. There's my car. I'm buying it. I'm buying a piece of property for $2,000, and I bought 4 of them for $2,000, and somehow buying those 4 pieces of property for $2,000 turned into a $40,000 car, right? And that's a way that you can look at it. And one of those properties, well, there's my car insurance, right? Plus more, right? So there's your car insurance and your heating, whatever it may be. It's some bills, it's this, whatever it is. So if you start adding those things up, we gave you 4 deep. Imagine if you went 10 deep. Now you've got your car covered, maybe a lot of your house covered, and maybe some other expenses as well. So that's the power of doing these owner financing deals. And again, only on smaller end deals. We're not talking about huge high-end things. This is smaller end deals. So not something to shy away from, especially now as the economy is starting to shift. You're going to start to see, it kind of died off a little bit in the hotter market. People were paying cash, they were outlaying it, but people are a little bit more tight-fisted now. There's a little bit of concern about what's going on with the economy and what things are going to happen here towards, as we're getting into the end of the year, all of these different concerns. And so because of that, people are asking more for owner financing again. And so if you're willing to work with them and willing to do this, there's a lot of opportunity for you. So again, here's the thing here where I was talking about getting a $40,000 plus vehicle with 0 of your money outlaid. I'm sure you can see that potential now. Again, it's not free, but basically it's what did it really cost you based on what you had to put in. And we showed you the example for a very small amount. In fact, it turned out to be a wash. You could get a $40,000 vehicle. And again, with a little bit more capital, you could have a whole lot more things out there. So again, something that you want to look at, something that you want to reason with as you're going forward here, because there's a ton of opportunity for it. People are going to want to buy these properties like this, and that is going to translate into you being able to have more passive income going in each and every month. So hopefully you guys enjoy this. Let us know what you think. Reach out if you have any questions on it. The information's all below. I'd be more than happy to help you, and we'll catch you next time on Crushing Land.